Mackenzie.
Lemar.
Spooky season rolls on. Those of you with visual notice that we both have red on us today, so that's nice.
I did my days sober. It felt
I
like
went
time.
with this specifically. So hockey season just started. Go Devils! And because it's spooky season on the podcast, hail Satan! So it works on 3 levels. I'm doing great over here. But yeah, we're doing Shaun of the Dead. Oh, nice mug. Very excited for this one today. One of my favorite, not just comedy horrors, but just one of my favorite horror movies. I think it balances both, and I love this film. But we're also at the same time as spooky season celebrating our 2-year anniversary this month, and good for us. We've been doing cold opens sent in from our listeners, and I had sort of a either or option here today because we got 2 sort of similar questions, and you can pick which one you want to answer. But essentially, we got one from my friend Jonathan in Chicago, and he said, what movie do you love but wouldn't necessarily recommend it to most of your family or friends? And then we got another one from Jen in New Jersey, and she says, what's a guilty pleasure movie you know is bad but still love anyway? I feel like those could be the same answer, and I'm going to put it in your court of which one you want to go with.
I'll do both because, I'm me.
And I'm going to have 5 answers for each.
Because you've met me. Well, I will say, asterisk to Jonathan's, hi, thank you for your question, is I think there's about 1,200 of those, to be honest, because, a lot of Oscar films I really love, but I wouldn't recommend people watch. In a lot of cases, they're just really heavy or things like that. So I think there's a lot of these for me. But one that I think is a really hard topic, and I kind of cheated. I went and looked at my wall of movies to help me here.
That's fair.
But I love this movie, Life as a House. It is.
I saw that movie in theaters with a girlfriend. We might have hooked up during the movie in the theater. That is a memory.
No, you did not.
I'm pretty sure that movie. Not that
you
I wasn't
hooked up during
myself.
Life as a House?
I was 16, dude. So
oh god, that is so fucked up.
It's not that I didn't enjoy the film. I thought it was very inspiring, but I just had other priorities at the time.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, if you watch this movie, you will understand why that is fucked up. But it's got some amazing cast: Kevin Kline, Kristen Scott Thomas, Hayden Christensen, Jenna Malone. But it's a really sad story. I think it's a really good story with a good message at the end, kind of. But it's a rough watch, and it's really super sad.
I had a great time during it, so
I clearly clearly, yeah. I think my guilty pleasure one I've mentioned on the pod before, but I'll just drop it again because I also think it's fitting for spooky season, which is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
You've mentioned that one a couple times.
Yeah, it's
fine.
It's guilty pleasure-ish, You know what I mean? It's fine. Kind of falls into Jen's question because it's not amazing, but it's a fun watch, and it's kind of it's campy and silly, and it's got fun effects and things. It's a good cast for as okay as it is. So, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure.
Figured out during the past years in spooky season, you tend to be drawn, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you tend to be drawn to more of the classic monster stories, like the Universal type monsters when there's vampires involved and werewolves, and that is right up that alley.
Yeah, and it's all literary references, right? And the classic monsters are from that, exactly to your point. So yes, this is 12 literary references is in one, so I get to just nerd out the whole time as well. So yeah, it's right up my alley. You're right. What about you?
For me, the second one from Jen is a little tougher to answer because I feel like as a more, I guess traditional is not the right word, but as a avid horror fan who watches the good, the bad, and the ugly and likes them all for different reasons, I know there's a lot of shit horror movies that are guilty pleasures for me. Even the first Friday the 13th is not that good of a film, people. People need to stop putting it on a pedestal. I think the reveal is cool, but I think they associate just the name Friday the 13th with Jason Voorhees, and he's not even in the first one, really. So, a lot of horror probably fits into that guilty pleasure category for me. But for the one that Jonathan asked of what do I love, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend to every member of my family or friends, and this is going to seem kind of left field, I'm going to go with Bo Burnham's Inside. It's such a random choice, but for those that don't know...
It's not. Like it makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
actually.
For those that don't know, Bo Burnham, comedian and songwriter, during COVID was kind of locked in his apartment like most of us by himself for months and months and months, and sort of used the time to not only craft this incredible 90-minute series of different comedy songs and little like moments, and then it's kind of a half documentary, half performance thing, but it was also an opportunity for him to work through his depression that had already existed before COVID started. And now he's locked in. So you're watching him mentally kind of break down throughout this and eventually come out the other side. And I think for something as funny as it is, it carries a really interesting message and it's inspirational and it helped me out. But I have friends who have told me I watched that and it just put me in like right back in 2020 and I was miserable. So it's not for everybody. And I think if Bo Burnham and his comedy isn't for you, I wouldn't recommend it either. But if you've never seen it and sounds like it might be up your alley, highly recommend.
I love Bo Burnham and I loved that movie. I would plus one all of your comments of it's like this great performance art piece, but it's also very cathartic to see him go through this real mental health struggle and come out the other side, and also just relatable from all the ways a lot of us felt. I was like very physically alone during COVID lockdown, and I had just lost my dog, for example, and so I was alone for the first time maybe in my life, and I related so much to a lot of what he shared in that, but he made it funny. Like he's one of those comedians who can make it relatable, make trauma funny, which is why comedians are funny in the first place. But he does a really good job of it. I agree.
It's just amazing what you can do in like by yourself in a like 20 by 10 foot apartment. The effects and like the lighting and the different things he manages to pull off as a one-man show. It's really, really neat.
Very creative. Yeah. Good call.
Yeah,
all right. Well, thanks for your questions, guys.
Jinx.
Double jinx. All right. Let's go. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lemar.
And we are continuing Spooky Season, if you didn't notice. And this one is with a funnier entry, another one of Lamar's faves.
I'm getting spoiled this month.
You are getting kind of spoiled this month, I will say. As we've gone through this, I'm like,
Well,
anyway.
Next week's for you. I think next week is one.
Next week's kind of for me. We'll get there. I, have feelings about it now. Anyways, Shaun of the Dead today, which is a fun one. But what are we drinking for this one?
Well, we are drinking, as always, sort of brought to you by At Craft World this week, because we're giving you guys some liberties with what you want to do with this. Yeah. The long and short of it, in Shaun of the Dead, pretty much they're drinking beer the entire film. And this whole plot revolving around them getting to the Winchester and all this stuff. So we're just seeing them put down pint after pint. So we're going to call this the Pint of the Dead, but you're allowed to take, like I said, some creative liberties. So, for example, I did not want to go all beer, so I did like half a blonde ale, and then I put 3 or 4 ounces of cranberry juice and a shot of pomegranate liqueur. So it's got kind of this red tint to it. It's kind of like a beer mosa, honestly. And then you did something a little different. What did you go with?
Yeah, so I kept it simple because I have a red ale here, a la Smithwick's, which is very appropriate for this film. And it was red, but it wasn't red enough. So I added some red food coloring to it to make it like
there you go. I think yours is actually redder than mine, so it worked out well. But
yeah,
do whatever you want, guys. Enjoy a pint on us while you listen to this one. Cheers.
Exactly. Cheers. All right, let's get into some basics, and then we'll go ahead and throw down a spoiler warning, even though this is a little bit older. But not everybody's seen it, so that's fine. This is obviously Shaun of the Dead, 2004. This is rated pretty highly, 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb, 92% critics and 93% from audiences, which, fun fact, was a swap from last week. Don't ask me why I noticed that. Anyway, yeah, does that check out for you? That feels like, especially when it came out, it kind of feels appropriate.
I think for those of you watching this, decades after the fact, you need to realize where we were in horror at this time as far as zombie stuff. I think people were kind of burnt out. And this just took that entire genre. There's been so many comedy horrors since then. You know, we've talked about Cabin in the Woods. So there's a lot of meta stuff and a lot of comedy horror being made in the last couple decades, but that wasn't really a huge thing in 2004. And actually, Mackenzie, you said 2004. So are you meaning to tell me that this movie came out only 6 months after, say it with me, Dawn of the Dead 2004?
Oh my
so
God.
Dawn of the Dead came out 6 months apart. I guess in the UK they actually had to delay the release because it was going to come out literally the same week over there. They had to push it by 2 weeks just to not confuse viewers, I guess.
You can tell that Lemar thinks of time in relation to when Dawn of the Dead comes out. And I think of time in terms of pretending that Dawn of the Dead never came out.
No, time is a flat circle, and my like compass is Dawn of the Dead 2004. It's also just fun anytime I can back reference to that. Go listen to that episode if you've never heard it, guys.
I don't even remember it. I think I blacked out, but yeah, apparently it was a good one. But anyways, this was directed by one Edgar Wright, who we've talked about fairly recently on the pod when we discussed Baby Driver. But in honor of spooky season, I decided to try and reference people's spookiest works in their IMDb history. I wish I'd thought of this sooner, but anyways, we'll do it the rest of the month. So he did Grindhouse, teeny bit part, but it's
did like one of the fake trailers in that.
Yeah, it was like a fake trailer for.
So it was sandwiched between the Tarantino and Rodriguez, but in the middle there was like an Eli Roth fake trailer and a bunch of other famous directors, and he did Don't, which I think is one of the funnier fake trailers in there. But
well, what's funny is that if you look at his, and this will come up throughout this cast actually, if you look at their history, they have fewer legitimate horror or spooky films. It's a lot of parody, actually. So Edgar Wright, this is one of his few like more thriller, horror type of films that he was associated with. The other one I haven't seen, and I can't remember if you have, but is Last Night in Soho. Yeah.
It was fine. I was excited for it to see him do a more traditional horror film, because that one is less comedy and more just straight up like horror. And the first half was really good. It kind of not falls apart. I just didn't think it stuck the landing. So it's worth watching if you're an Edgar Wright fan. He still does some very creative things. We've talked about Baby Driver and a couple other films of his, of just how he has a unique perspective he brings to any genre. So worth watching, but don't expect a 10 out of 10 film.
Good to know. Good to know. He also wrote this. Same things, though. He wrote those as well. Simon Pegg is another writer on this. And he did the spookiest thing same thing, like I said before, there's not a lot of legitimate horror and thriller in here. But the spookiest thing I could find that he wrote was Truth Seekers, which
interesting.
I haven't seen, but is supposedly a horror. So, I don't know. Check it out. He also, of course, leads the cast as Shaun. He was in Cloverfield Paradox, which, again, I haven't seen. And
that one was... I don't even remember him in that, but Cloverfield Paradox, that was the one where they were in space, and it was it was like a script that had nothing to do with Cloverfield, and then they were like, a studio bought it and was like, we're just going to tie it into the Cloverfield franchise. So it's very ham-fisted and weird. It's not a great film. I don't recommend that one, honestly.
You're like, it actually doesn't really count as a Cloverfield movie. Well, I hate when they do that, where they're like just trying to capitalize on the name or the, cred from the...
Yes.
Gross. All right. Well, maybe don't check that one out. He also did Inheritance, which is supposed to be like a spooky story about somebody who unexpectedly inherits quite a big estate and money and all these things, and things go awry from there. So
Mission Impossible 3 was pretty scary. Philip Seymour Hoffman, he was a terrifying villain, so that one was pretty scary.
He was a good villain in that one. That one's like, I think, the weakest entry, sadly, which is a bummer because Philip Seymour Hoffman is the best. But
I think 2, a lot of people dislike 2 because it just was so heavy on the action. Like, no disrespect to John Woo, but
I fucking loved 2 because of all the stunts. Fun. Like, it's good stunts. The motorcycle shit. The only thing that pisses me off about that is they changed the tires mid scene, which is unrealistic. Anyway, it's
also more of a Halloween, like a spooky season movie, because of all the masks he has in that. He keeps taking off like the mask, and everyone's wearing Halloween masks in that film. So
it's true. That is maybe the heaviest mask usage one. They really double down there. You didn't know this was a Mission Impossible episode today. All right, moving on. Nick Frost plays Ed, and he also makes a brief appearance in Grindhouse / Don't. And then he also did something called Whistle that looked pretty creepy, but I've never seen it, so I don't know. But it looked like legit creepy, so check it out.
Yeah. He's in Attack the Block, which I do recommend, actually. It's got, I want to say it's John Boyega. I'm pretty sure it's him. It's one of his earliest film roles, and it's kind of an alien invasion movie in like downtown London. That one's very enjoyable. And then obviously, like, we can't mention all three of these guys together without talking about the Cornetto trilogy. So they did Hot Fuzz, which had horror elements, but was more of like a buddy cop movie. And then they did World's End, which was not to be confused with Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. But World's End is another sort of alien invasion type movie. But all three of these guys working together to write those, direct them, star in them. Do you have a favorite out of those three? Have you seen all three?
Yeah, I think so. Wait, World's End, this one, and which was the other one you said?
Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, I've seen all. Maybe World's End.
I liked the like emotional stuff in World's End of growing up and trying to hold on to, you know, the good times from like decades ago when you were younger. I kind of liked that story that was being told, but this is my favorite, but World's End's probably number 2 for me.
Yeah, I think it was that one. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember liking that one a lot when I came out of it. Cool. Also, Kate Ashfield plays Liz. She did a couple of actual horrors, Hangman, and then a TV series called Bodies, which is pretty creepy. And then Lucy Davis plays Diane, and she hasn't done a lot of creepy. She's done a more like creepy funny. But one of the ones that I think that people have seen and would know her from are Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which is on Netflix now. She plays one of the aunts. And then Murder in Mind, which is another series that it actually predates this movie, but each episode was like a murder story and uncovering who the murder was. It was very like Agatha Christie or Sherlock Holmes kind of energy.
That's kind of cool. I know it's not related to the spooky stuff that you're going on, but I thought it was worth mentioning that for Office fans, Lucy Davis plays basically the UK version of Pam, whose name is Dawn in the original The Office series. And then you also get a little cameo here from Martin Freeman, who's now much more famous than he was at this point. You know, he's been in the Hobbit films and Black Panther and whatnot, but he was kind of the Jim equivalent on the UK Office. So it's kind of cool we get the 2 UK leads here in this movie for a split second.
Make their little appearance. We also have Dylan Moran plays David. The only spooky things I could find that he did was something called Pixie, which was like kind of a revenge story, and The Killer's Game, which supposedly was like a thriller, and it looked really weird, to be honest with you, but you know, check it out. Maybe it's interesting. Okay. Bill Nighy, who I think just does not get enough time in this, you know. I love him. He plays
the
Philip.
Most dramatic turn of all time in the very beginning when he does the 180. That spin is just going hard.
He's so extra, and I just love that he like brings the spooky right out the gate with his appearance, so that's fun. He's done several spooky things over his career because he's done 1 million things. Something that he did recently that I actually haven't seen yet, because I'm kind of a purist about this series, is The First Omen. And the OG Omen, like the real The Omen, is one of my favorite horror movies, and so I haven't seen that one, but it looked pretty interesting. And then of course Underworld, multiple
he was like the head
Underworld
vampire in that. Yeah,
this is where Underworld is one of his, I would say, maybe like US breakout roles, like where people first start to really recognize him. And it's kind of a bummer because he has this weird tick in that movie that at least at first makes you kind of be like, what the fuck? He does this like sound that's like not a golem. It's like, I don't know. It's very annoying.
He's not a sexy enough vampire for you.
He's not a sexy vampire. He is an old man vampire. But he does a good job being creepy and kind of an asshole. So I guess it works. But
He was
he's
also
gross.
pretty scary for as much as it's not a horror movie. I just felt like his character in the Pirates of the Caribbean series was pretty damn creepy. Like as Davy Jones or whatever when he has the octopus face, like
Yeah.
that. Maybe it's the makeup, but it's also his performance. It's the most
Yeah.
horror element of the films, I would say.
Because you can tell it's him, like it absolutely is his
Mm-hmm.
performance and his delivery of that, despite like, the CGI and all of that. And yeah, he gives it a creepier energy for sure than the rest of the series. Penelope Wilton plays Barbara / mom. I thought we should make clear that she's mom. She's been in a couple things, mostly series. She does a lot of British television. And she did one called Murder is Easy. And then she did another one called Match Point, which is a Woody Allen that I haven't seen in many years. But when I first saw it, I remember being so fucking irritated at the ending, which is a kind of a Woody Allen thing, I guess. But anyway, it is like a thriller type movie. So I don't know. Maybe on rewatch, I'll be less annoyed at the ending. But it's Woody Allen. If you like him, go for it. And then I wanted to call out a few cameos, but I didn't like get into the weeds on their careers. Like to your point, Martin Freeman is in it, Matt Lucas is in it, Chris Martin of Coldplay, Jeremy Thompson, who's like a pretty famous British broadcaster. So we've got a lot of fun little cameos in here, including Edgar Wright as a zombie at some point as well. See if you can pick them out. But yeah, good number of cameos as well.
For sure. Yeah. It's I mean, this was their first, I think, major motion picture they all did together. I know there were some issues with budget. So the fact that this ends up having the sort of all-star cast, and a lot of them were just starting up, but definitely all went on to do much better things, bigger things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look at Simon Pegg now. I mean, he ended up writing the second Star Trek and then also being in that whole series, being in the Mission Impossible series. Like, he's gone on to do a lot of awesome things. So really cool. Quick plot summary. The uneventful, aimless lives of a London electronics salesman and his layabout roommate are disrupted by the zombie apocalypse. Dun, dun, dun.
No mention of the love story, which I feel like
Thank
is
you
sort of
so much. I'm glad you
pivotal.
said that, because doesn't that seem like an important factor?
It's not the first time that IMDb's kind of gotten that wrong from
We just rejected the entire relationship in that summary, but
and literally the tagline was a romantic comedy with zombies. That's sort of what it is. It's his Arrested Development, and like I wrote down, every great zombie film I do think has some sort of commentary on whether it's like a social commentary or whatever. And this is just about men who don't know how to grow up and like how to take care of themselves and support their partners and whatnot. So I think you have that in here, and it's hard to not mention that in the description of the film.
Hot take. What if the love story is him and Ed?
That's so it's very funny. I made it a point that I don't want to. So I told you that one of the reasons that I even had the idea to podcast, and that this thing ended up happening with us, was a horror movie podcast called Dead and Lovely. They operated for about 7 or 8 years. They quit, I think, last year, 2 years ago. But they had an episode on Shaun of the Dead, and they spent about 90 minutes talking about how the bromance, it's really a love triangle.
Is actually
and if you watch Ed's character throughout this, he gets jealous of Liz. He's putting her down. He's giving her nasty looks. It's very much a love triangle.
I mean, and we're not going to get into all the actions, but I think there's a bunch of things throughout that kind of tell that story as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think either way, she's a pivotal part of the story that got overlooked. And yeah, IMDb doesn't always do the best at that, so no worries. Quick production note before we do spoiler stuff. This did pretty well for first time outing for these guys. This had a $6 million budget. To your point, there were definitely some budget struggles, but they eked out $6 million. But they made 38.7, and there wasn't a ton of marketing budget. So like, that's a pretty solid profit there, actually, at the end of the day. So launched them certainly into doing kind of the rest of these that we mentioned.
Yeah. They went on to do incredible things together. I kind of want them to do more, but it's good on them for going in 3 separate paths. It didn't feel like they always had to work together, and I think they've gone and done creative things while still not being afraid of teaming up,
Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't think you should milk it too hard or too long. It starts to get old at a certain point. So I think it's actually solid that they've spread their wings and shown they can do other things. And then, because this kind of thing, if you do it over and over and over, it has an expiration date. You know what I mean? Sure. So I think they could come back and it would still have interest. do something similar in the vein of these films that they've worked on together, and it wouldn't be tired because they haven't overdone it, so that's cool. All right, kids, turn around, don't drown. It's spoiler time.
Oh boy, what do you think of the opening to this? Right into like the music, into the pub sequence, we kind of get a lay of the land of all the different characters and the dynamics between them into the opening credits. Like, any early reaction to that stuff?
My first note is opening scene LOL. Because I do think it's funny, to just like immediately drop you into this dynamic and these people, and the slow reveal, right, of the fact that multiple people are there. At first you think it's just this couple having a conversation that's a little rough, not a full-blown fight, but a little rough. And
that's one of my favorite gags in comedy, is a conversation happening, but there's someone else present off screen. I feel like the TV show Arrested Development did that a fair amount too, around the same time as this. But I love that when it's revealed that Ed's standing right there and they're talking about him, and then David and Di are sitting right there and they're talking about them. I love that reveal.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's at relevant points in the conversation. It's like they slowly get introduced at relevant points, and the thing that's creative, I think, about introducing Ed is, his commentary on the pinball game that he's playing is overlaid with their actual conversations, and it's a less on the nose way to make like kind of dirty jokes, basically. And I like that they're kind of having their silly bro humor while making it a little bit funnier. So I was like, that's better. That's not as on the nose. But yeah, the slow reveal is real interesting.
Agreed. As someone who's seen this movie probably, God, I don't know, 10 to 15 times, it also, like I said, does a great job of telling you who these characters are outside of this core trio. I think David and Di get recognized pretty early on. Has anybody ever done this sort of jealous, friend-zoned kind of character better than Dylan Moran? I think he crushes it in this, of just, he's interrupting Shaun, he's asking questions, he's in later scenes, he's calling her Lizzie, which even Shaun doesn't do, and we get the line of, why don't you go out with her, you love her so much. I just feel like Dylan Moran might be the most underrated because he's kind of the villain in this, despite it being, the zombies are the bad guys. Like, I feel like David is kind of the ultimate dick in this.
I have a note at some point in here, and I don't know where, but it said David is the literal worst in all caps. And I kind of hate him. He also, like, this is shallow and not fair to this poor actor, but in this movie, he has a very punchable face also. So
I didn't want to say it during the opening, but they did eventually bring him in for Run Fat Boy Run, another Simon Pegg thing. And I don't know if Edgar Wright helped write that, but in that, they let him be much more likable. And I think he's like the dumb friend in that. So that kind of gets him a little bit of grace when I rewatch this, of, okay, it's not just that he's hateable, he's doing a great performance here.
He's doing a good job. All right, well, good to know. He does, then yes, he does a great job because he's very dislikable and punchable and all the things. So, and I like how he kind of gives himself a tell there, actually, to your point of when he's like, if you like her so much, why don't you go out with her? He's like, what do you mean by that? And it's not like a one-off action. He pauses and asks it again. And it's like,
to his girlfriend. And she's got wide eyes. Like, she knows exactly what he's talking about.
Right. And he's calling attention to it. And it's, what is it, doth protest too much kind of thing. Right. And so it was just like, dude, you're so obvious.
It's little things that are written. Edgar Wright does not get enough. Actually, you know what? Edgar Wright does get enough credit because we gushed over him during Baby Driver and how meticulous he is with his scripts. And in this, every little line that David has is perfect. He's showing that he kind of knows more about Shaun and Liz's relationship than Shaun does. Because there's a line in the beginning where she's like, we met in Greece. And David just cuts in at a rave. And then, isn't your anniversary coming up? And he goes, it was last week. Like, he is just like taking every little nitpick he can to make Shaun look bad because he's got the hots for Lizzie. Sorry, Lizzie, I hope I didn't call you that.
I don't think you guys are there yet.
Sorry,
I think you need to give it a minute. Give it a minute for sure. Yeah, I think he does a good job. And I mean, you're right. We kind of did gush over Edgar Wright. But, I'll just like call it out now because I'm probably going to say some things throughout this that you don't love. But like, this is not my normal movie. It's not my energy. I think there are things that I think are funny. I really am not into zombie movies. Like, it's a hard sell for me. I think they're all telling, to your point, I like that they're all a metaphor for something else. There's some kind of commentary on something, but I'm kind of like, okay, there's like, pick 5 things that this could be about that's not zombies. And then after that, it just gets kind of tired to me. And I don't like gore, like, I mean, I'll watch it if it's makes sense in the movie, but I don't seek out gore for gore's sake. And that's what I think of as zombie movies. But the reason I think I can watch this and not be completely enraged the entire time is because of Edgar Wright's writing and Simon Pegg's writing, because I think they pace it really well, and they create kind of a formula in terms of the parody aspect, and they commit to it. They follow it, like, kind of exactly where it's going to go, but it's not annoyingly predictable, I guess, is the thing I would say, because of the way that the writing kind of delivers the lines a bit more creatively.
There's two things you said there that are really interesting. The first thing is I would agree with you. The zombie genre, I would say, outside of the slasher genre of horror, or subgenre, I guess, zombies, I think inherently, and I'm racking my brain right now, I would say that's probably, with slasher, the second most where gore is directly tied to the subgenre. Like, you don't necessarily, if you're a horror fan, you don't necessarily want to watch a zombie movie if there isn't some really cool kills in it. That's going all the way back to Night of the Living Dead, George Romero. It's black and white, but there is some gruesome stuff in there. And I feel like it's just that established genre. Now everyone feels like they have to have that in there. So totally agree with that. And if gore isn't your thing, you're probably not going to like zombie movies because of that. And then the second thing you said about the script surprising you and not being predictable, I find that interesting, because for how much foreshadowing is done in this and how much mirroring is done of, like, this scene, like, it foreshadows this thing's going to happen later, or this mirrors this thing that happened earlier.
Well, no, I just mean the lines are not predictable, because, like,
like
story
the script itself.
right?
Okay.
Like, the story is predictable. It follows a formula, and yes, there is so much foreshadowing, like, really subtle, down to his routines and the way people move, and the cues that you get over the course of the days where this is progressing. Like, yeah, there's, I mean, kind of what's coming. But I think the way that they react to it and the things that they say specifically are not perfectly predictable, and they're just clever. They're more clever than your normal kind of zombie movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because you never know how seriously the characters are taking this situation.
Yeah.
The world is ending, but they're quipping one-liners out left and right, and it feels kind of silly. But I kind of like that. We'll get to the end, and I think there's a certain point where the movie shifts gears that we'll get to. But I feel like this is a good spot to talk about when we're talking about sort of foreshadowing and the mirroring. Is we have to talk about that opening. One shot, I guess it's not the opening scene, but that one shot where Shaun walks from the apartment to the convenience store, everything that happens there. And then when the zombie shit hits the fan the next day, again, we get that one shot. I think that might be the coolest thing in the movie, is Edgar's ability to sort of frame that, make it all work, look at the subtle differences, make it funny, make it kind of unsettling and scary. It reminds me of 28 Days Later, when Cillian Murphy's wandering around London and there's like no one there, like a little different here. But I don't know, any reaction to that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, I thought that was smooth, and I liked, to your point, how it was shot, the single shot take, and it feels kind of like you're immersing yourself in the first day in his normal life, his normal routine, and it sets this baseline that's really solid. But even then, again, to your point, there's like subtle foreshadowing. There's like the "you're dead," and there's the guy with the dog, and there's the guy in front of the trash cans, and there's things on the newspapers when he's in the shop for the first time that, if he paid closer attention to, might be questionable, stuff like that. There's all kinds of little things there. And then the next day it flips, but we're going through the same thing, because my whole note here too is like, fucking men, man, like, so fucking oblivious. Like, God, a lot of this could have been avoided if they just paid the fuck attention. And yeah, it was just wild to see him go through it the next day. And I was also like, that's wildly realistic, because I've met men.
I wonder if like their laziness of just being hungover and sleeping until whatever the hell time of day it is, if that actually saved them in a way, because they weren't out and about when all this shit went down. But I just love that the mirroring of those two scenes. I like that after Liz dumps him and sort of tells him he needed to change and all this. On the second day, I don't know if you noticed this, but he looks. So on the first day, he opens the fridge. First off, there's not a bloody handprint on it, but he takes out a Coke and a Diet Coke. He looks at the things, takes the Coke. Second day, tiniest thing, takes the Diet Coke instead. Like the slip on the blood, that might, the sound in this, we talked about Baby Driver and the music, but that slip and his non-reaction to it is hilarious. Later on, the like Polaroid camera, or not Polaroid camera, the windy camera.
Oh my God, that's one of my favorite.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things. I will say, I was like, this is so cheesy. And then they take that first picture, and then it happens again, and there's this deep pause, and it's just the wind of the disposable camera makes it for sure.
I think that scene, the garden, Mary in the garden, that encapsulates the movie more than anything, because there's some creepy shots in there of her just sort of standing there and you're like, what the hell's going on? And we know it's a zombie, but they're, again, completely oblivious, and we get the physical comedy of her kind of attacking him and Ed just taking the picture instead of helping him, but then they realize what's going on. You get that incredible gore shot of the hole in her stomach. So I think that like 5 minutes of film there is the perfect. If I was going to show anybody one scene from this, it'd probably be that, and then they'd want to watch the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a great trailer for it in terms of getting people kind of bought into the story. I don't love, they don't know what exactly the issue is with the lady, so I sort of get them going outside. But, it's just kind of like those horror movie tropes where you're like, don't go outside. But, they're not paying attention, so it makes sense that they've done that at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just, they're missing a lot of cues, including like he had kind of, some pretty big ones, and like massive military trucks going by, and like the dude in the park with the pigeons and all the things. And it's just like, it's just not registering. And one of the things that doesn't register, and this is not like a foreshadowing at all, it's just something that fucking triggers me in every movie ever, is I hate when phones ring incessantly in movies. Like, it gives me the itch. I'm like, answer the fucking phone, hang up the fucking phone. It just makes me irrationally rage.
Feels like a very 2004 problem. I don't think, does that still happen in like,
but people still do it in movies now. Yeah. Like now it's the annoying cell phone ringer, it's like that bring, 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 and I'm just like, immediately want to commit murder. So maybe that would turn me into a rageful zombie as well. I don't know. But anyway, they're so oblivious to everything. It just is one of the many things that they're not paying attention to.
Yeah. And there's like, it's really quick to get some of the zombie stuff out of the way, as somebody who does, enjoy a good zombie film. The amount of Easter eggs in this is crazy. I'm sure, people who love this movie are already aware of a lot of them, but you have references to Evil Dead, which I guess Deadites aren't technically zombies, but whatever. You have mentions of Ash. You have Forey Electric, which is a reference to the original Dawn of the Dead, Ken Forey, who also has a cameo in Dawn of the Dead 2004, not to harp on that.
Oh my God.
You have the references 28 Days Later when they talk about like the monkeys potentially causing the virus. I like that in this they stick to most zombie tropes where they don't tell you what started it. There's like little hints at it, but every time somebody's about to explain it, either gets cut off,
mystery
or
flu, mystery whatever, and they just click through the episode.
There's like a radio satellite that fell from space mentioned in the beginning, but like you never really know why the zombies are there, and I kind of prefer that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, because does it really matter? They're there and they're starting to eat everyone, so maybe pay the fuck attention, start killing some zombies. I don't know. I like all the and it's not so much an Easter egg. Well, although there is one more that I'm not sure if you remember, but it's the like, we're coming to get you, Barbara.
Yeah.
That is the George Romero. Yep. And it's funny because when he watched it, so he actually had a private screening of this first, and he actually really liked it, even though of course it's a parody. But he didn't realize that line was a direct rip, and till later he talked to, I know, isn't that funny? And he had a phone conversation with Edgar Wright where apparently it came up, and he told him then, and he was like, oh, he didn't even notice it. So I just think it's funny, even as a filmmaker, you
He
don't
ended
get
up
even
putting
all
them
your own
in,
references.
like 2 years after that, he put them as a cameo in Land of the Dead, which was not my favorite Romero film, but
Yeah.
Edgar Wright
But they
and
were
Simon Pegg
zombies,
were
right?
yeah,
Like he
they're in
made
it for
them
like
zombies.
literally 20 seconds, but
Well,
you can
I will say this, even, Simon Pegg's a pretty good zombie. They have that scene later that's pretty funny. I love when Diane is, the actress is teaching them all how to zombie, giving them some theater coaching, right? And giving them motivation. That's my favorite part, where she's trying to give them motivation for their zombies.
And that ties back to the beginning of the movie that, like I said, there's so much foreshadowing in this where Ed's speech basically tells you everything that's going to happen in the film.
Yeah.
He's talking about wake up tomorrow, we'll have a Bloody Marys. There's Mary in the backyard. He goes through like picking up the two, like the little princesses and like the couple, and like that's the David and Di stuff. Bite of the King's Head. That's Philip getting attacked, and then stumbling back to the bar for shots, which is what you're referencing.
Yeah, and I think there were some other ones too that they called out, but he basically, foreshadows the entire day, lays it all out for you. And so, yeah, they're pretty good at the zombieing of it all, for sure. One of the things before they like get going though, that just gives me a little chuckle is, the night they got hammered, right? And they even saw a zombie, but they didn't register it because, of course. But I think it's funny. I was thinking about like, why didn't the zombie kind of come after them? And there's two things. They're very slow moving, these zombies. They're not one of the speed demon ones like World War Z, which is fucking stupid. And
they're
they
also
asked
not CGI like World War Z. So
right, exactly. And Simon Pegg was asked about this, like, why were they slow? And he was like, because death is not an energy drink. Like, and I was like, excellent point. So I liked the commitment to that, as like, he wasn't going to be able to catch them, but they did see them. But anyway, he passes out that night, and he's like trying to remember what he needs to do the next day. He's so sad about the breakup, and he just scribbles on the fridge and passes out. And you see that. I loved that shot of him in the quick cut of him in the exact same position. And then it's morning, and then you see what he wrote, and it's just so funny. Go around, moms, get Liz back, sort out life.
Yeah, he's a goal setter. He accomplishes them all.
I know. I was like, solid to-do list, bro.
His mom does get killed as a result of it, but he could check that off the list,
He tries, and he's and also like think about sort out life, right? It's kind of a bigger foreshadowing as well, because he ends up sorting out kind of everybody's life, not just his. He's trying to save everybody. So, and he kind of gets his shit the most together under these incredibly stressful, insane circumstance. And so it's funny. He was I love that progression of him being kind of built for a zombie apocalypse, and who knew,
Yeah, it was like good timing of he needed a sort of a stimulant to get his shit together, and this acts as it. And I do, for as much as we said they didn't mention the rom-com stuff throughout, I like that they have the Liz character, which, props to Kate Ashfield. I think she's really good in this. And it's a bummer to me that I don't think I've seen her. I see she has a bunch of credits, but I don't think I've seen her in anything since then that I've gone to see. Yeah. And I think she's really good. And I like that they have her character actually call him out of, hey, just because you're saving me doesn't mean we're back together. Like, you need to show
I love the boundary setting on her part at the beginning. Like, thanks. You said this was about life and death. This wasn't about us, which is great. But I also do like that, she's seeing him get his shit together. She's seeing him kill zombies. She's still seeing him take charge of a situation, specifically in the bar. And she's like, okay, that's hot. Like, I'm into that. I love that. Yeah. And I was like, girl, I get it. Like, so.
And even when they like get back together at the end, it's really just because they both think they're going to die in that moment.
I love his comment, just straight up. You don't want to die single, do you? And it's like, fair enough, yo. Like, that's what a pitch. You know what I mean? Yes. It would work. It would work.
I'm going to see if you can speak to this, see how well you know me, Mackenzie. What is my biggest complaint about movies in general? Like, what do I complain about more often than not about motion pictures? It's a general complaint.
Oh, it's a great question. Man, we've been doing this for 2 years. You would think I would remember what your biggest complaint is. I feel like you complain about a lot of things. No,
I do.
That's really also more. We both complain about a lot of things, to be fair. Yeah. I would just Hail Mary say like inconsistencies in like
that's an interesting
tying
one.
the stories together, kind of thing of like
I could see that.
plot
I'd have to go
holes,
back.
I feel like we've talked about a few times where you're like,
Like,
this
why
doesn't
did
make
this
sense
happen?
to me. Yeah,
Yes,
why did this
that
happen?
that definitely is up there. I have to go back and like compile some stats and see what I've complained about the most. I feel like the thing I bring up the most is length, when a film could be 20 minutes shorter than it is, or the
That
need
is
to be
true. You
like,
do complain
it
about that a
has to
lot.
be 2 hours long, or like, oh, it's a Scorsese film, so if we don't hit the 3 hour mark, what's even the point of doing this? So with this one, I love that it is an hour and 40 minutes long, and it is tight. You get
Yeah.
hints, you get the situation laid out for these dynamics of the characters in the first 5 minutes. You get hints of the zombies within the first 10 minutes, and by like the 25-minute mark, we're in zombie apocalypse, and everything is just go 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 from there. So I love the pacing and the length of this. No wasted
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I mentioned about the script as well. I think that's the framework, right, for the pacing. It's really tight, it's really solid, and the beginning gives you just enough of,
Mm-hmm.
that exposition that you need to get where you need to go. And then you kind of get the catharsis at the right time. I think it's so funny that they have this catharsis with I love the running gag about him not being his dad. Then they
Stepdad.
have this like dramatic cathartic moment where he kind of is his dad. He
Yeah.
finally sort of is like, oh, you are like my dad, whatever, as he's dying, of course. And then he immediately does the bit again, and is like, well, he was, but he's dead now, and like, just, it's things like that they pay off, right? Like they're paced
Yes.
really well and they land at the right time. And then there's a payoff for it at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right,
Every
that's good.
character in this story has a purpose. Even Di, who I don't think gets as much of a chance to shine, that's very intentional. She's always downplayed by her shitty boyfriend.
Yeah.
And that's when she gets her moment of like, just listen to me. I love that delivery too, when she yells at him finally.
Yeah.
I think that really validates her character throughout. But every single character who is part of this main core group is integral to what plays out and gets some sort of payoff. His best friend character from like years ago, which if anybody, you never watched Spaced, did you? That was like Simon Pegg's original TV series that he like created.
No.
But the leader of the other group they run into, which has the guy from The Hobbit in it, Martin
Freeman.
Martin Freeman. She was his co-star in Space, so it's a nice little way for them to bring her in and give her something to do in this movie. But like that cast of other 6 characters, we don't need to see what happens to them because they aren't pivotal to the story. I like that she shows up at the end as the impetus for getting them saved because he told her they were going to the Winchester. So everything matters. There's nothing wasted, to repeat myself.
And like, well, and even like the hilarity of them being the exact same gang is like, it's not necessary, but it's a fun little cherry on top, and it ties in again later to, like, to your point, she comes and saves them, but it's just them, right? Like everybody's died in some way. And so I do like that kind of mirrors and feels a little bit more realistic, right? Like, how likely is it with being so surrounded that everyone would survive, So, I think it is really good. The one thing I don't like about the Diane character is I think she's really funny and clever, but that delivery is really good too. I agree with you. But like, it makes me sad. Like, I know it's not the point of this movie, but she's like settling for this guy, David, who's not in love with her. And I hate that. And she finally gets her own voice and tells him to listen. Great, fabulous. But then he's dying. And she, like, super dying, right? Like, his intestines are no longer in his body. Let's be so for real, right? And they're all still hanging onto the legs, where I'm like, let fucking go of his legs. They're eating him alive.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to walk this one off.
He's not walking this one off. He doesn't need the leg. Let it go. But she takes one and she goes out and beats him. And she's like, I'm coming, David. Like, she's going to save him. And I'm like, girl, one, why are you saving this man that's not in love with you anyway and is treating you so terribly? And 2, he's super fucking dead. Like, why are you sacrificing yourself for the situation? And I tied this all together and made myself feel better about it, because there is, in fact, a theory that she actually fought her way through all the zombies. I think it's like on the DVD commentary or something.
They did some comic strips, basically, like animated, where they did the drawings and they explained some of the plot holes, not plot holes, but just missing information.
But just like the ending, the epilogue of some people. And so like her epilogue is that she fights her way through and climbs up into a tree and passes out, wakes up, isn't aware if it's over or not. So she waits out for 3 days, living off of his leg, which is disgusting.
She's a cannibal now.
But then she moves away and goes and lives with her mom or something like that, and she's in Christmas card contact with
I like that
Shaun
for the
and
character,
Liz.
and I remember seeing that on the DVD.
I just don't want her to die for David.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I'm glad she survived, but at the same time, it's kind of a plot hole because when they show Shaun and Liz in their apartment at the end, her picture is on the like in memoriam table with all the other dead characters. I don't know why they would put her there if that wasn't the case.
Maybe they find out later in the Christmas card that she survived.
Yeah. That could be it. Yes.
I just need her to not have died for that piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to roll with it.
To something else you had said, I just wanted to touch really quick on something I said at the beginning where this movie balances horror and comedy. We just talked about David, his guts getting ripped out. Like that is straight out of, it's a straight 1978 Dawn of the Dead reference. Like the Tom Savini has that death in that movie. Like he basically did the makeup and effects for his own death. So I think that is a direct reference, but you get that. I think honestly, the one jump scare that always gets me every single time I watch this, no matter how many times, is Pete in the shower. Not the reveal of him standing there, but after Shaun closes the curtain on him and starts to back up, when the hand pops out, it's something weird with the timing of it. It's not a traditional jump scare, but something about the audio effect and the timing of that always still gets me to jump. So the movie's got horror, and it also has a ton of comedy. The hard cut after they're like beating the shit out of Mary and the other zombie in the backyard, of them just bloody, like screaming, and then the hard cut to them eating the ice cream on the couch and just dead-eyed, is comic genius.
I like that cut. Yeah, the cut to the ice cream was pretty funny. And I love that they're basically like, let's have a sit down, like, let's have a sit. We need to figure this out, and like, let's sit and do nothing is the reaction, which I thought was appropriate and hilarious. I didn't really notice the jump scares. I didn't really have any jump scare moment, including in the shower. So that's interesting, but I'm glad that it like has an impact in terms of, traditional horror, which is cool. One of the things that, it's not so much a jump scare, but one of the things that I don't like that they do is the shotgun thing in the bar, where the bar is. I think the bar is on fire. The bar being on fire and the way they do that is very cool. And I think it creates a legitimate barrier that would be, would stop, at least pause the zombies, right? And when she comes through the little like bar, door, his like, give us a fucking break is so funny, because you're like, really, really she got through, of course. But I don't like the shotgun thing, because these are shells, you guys. Like, they don't work like that. They don't work like bullets. So even if they were on fire, they wouldn't aim and shoot people. They would just explode, like in place. I didn't realize that was the case. Yeah, so that just like took me out of it for a second. And I was like, yeah, that's not how that would work. Like,
I do like that the girl who gets behind the bar, though, is one of the regulars from the beginning. So if anybody who knows how to get behind the bar, it's probably this chick that's been coming here every night,
Yeah, this is true. I mean, she's like, this is my bar. This is my place, 100%. But yeah, I mean, slight change. They could have just changed it's not shells, say they're bullets. But, whatever.
I wanted to, before we get to we're kind of in the shit now. I wanted to double tap when I said earlier, I think the movie gets flipped and gets serious when we have like the showdown with David and Shaun has to kill his mom. That is like emotionally packs a huge punch.
I will say that's film. Like, yeah, I would agree. That was like kind of legit. And also the way she handled it was legit, which I do think, again, follows a formula of somebody, not necessarily a mom, right? Of getting bit, not disclosing that, right, for whatever reason. And in her case, it's such a mom reason, right, of I didn't want to be a bother, I thought he'd be upset, all these things she keeps saying. So she does a great job of it, and then they have this like legit emotional death scene. He plays it very well, she plays it very well. David continues to be the worst ever, and
him taking his glasses off right after he Shaun shoots his mom, just dusting them off and like, yeah, I think that was the right thing to do, and I'm so glad he gets decked in the fucking face right after that.
Right, because like, what a fucking monster, he like just has no feel. He's like you said, he's kind of the real villain here. So I was like, that was where I had the note of he's the literal worst, and immediately his karma's great though. Like, I love that for him, because he gets punched in the face and his intestines ripped out, and yeah, seems appropriate, to be honest.
Yeah. Before we get to the actual sort of how this all wraps up, like the ending, we haven't really touched too much on what we teased earlier of sort of the Shaun and Ed dynamic. And I think,
Thanks, babe.
yeah, thanks, babe. That look. I guess that also is a reference to, I think it's Spaced. I didn't watch all of Spaced. I only watched the first like 6 episodes, but I think that's a reference to Spaced. I think their characters on there do that a fair amount. But I'll let you take the bromance component. But I think my favorite part of this movie acknowledges that lovable idiot who's your favorite comic relief in every other movie and horror movie would be a fucking liability in this situation when he's just on his phone texting and stuff and not paying it, and finally gets called out, and it's like, you are holding me back, like I've been covering for you. I love that they actually address that.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, like he is also not great. I mean, he's a slob, he doesn't contribute, he doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself. He just wants his best friend. He wants to, that arrested development like you're talking about, that failure to launch energy. And, Shaun's character is definitely brought down by him to some degree, because he is trying to grow and have a relationship outside of this one. And so yeah, you don't love that. And then yes, it completely checks out that he would just fucking answer his phone in the middle of a zombie attack and be like, nah man, I'm not holding. Like, really yeah, super super fucking annoying. And I love that it really triggers Shaun. And even though that has been, to your point, the bromance of it all, like he defends him, he lets him live there, he asks him to do, clean up for me, and the thanks babe of it all, and like the him cheering him up in the Winchester of it all. It's just like one very, again, like bromance moment after another of why they're really each other's person a little bit. And him kind of snapping at him is a nice juxtaposition to that, I think.
And they build up to it too, right? Of Ed intentionally crashing the first car so that he can drive the Jag.
Yep.
Ed spinning out the Jag just to do like, a donut or whatever, and it breaks the car. They have to leave. He gets out of the car, doesn't let people out of the back seat, and is just playing on his phone. It's like I know it's a comedy, so we're kind of like laughing, but at the end of the day, it's like if this were really happening, he would have been out of my herd real quick. Like, no, you go for sure.
Like, at what point do you stop covering for your friend? Yes. And I guess that's the breaking point for Shaun is him answering the phone to deal weed, basically. And so it makes sense. It probably, like, to your point, would have been faster for me, but yeah, it is, I think it is a good breaking point for them that kind of leads into a little bit of a wake-up call for Ed as well, because he has not been spoken to this way by Shaun either. He hasn't really laid the smackdown at this point. And I think that's kind of why he does what he does later, of like, oh man, I have been fucking up. I have been a shitty friend.
Yeah. He, I wouldn't say he sacrifices himself, but I think he realizes he needs to step up in this situation. So he does, again, everything is kind of important. And Ed is the only one who's had any real, gun practice. So like, he shot his sister with an air rifle. That counts. But yeah, when he sort of like takes on Pete, shout out Pete Serafinowicz, who's in a lot nowadays. He's gone on to a lot of cool stuff after this. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy, but I digress. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the music in this. I feel like is a real precursor to Baby Driver. We talked about how big Edgar Wright goes on music, and that Queen sequence where it's in like kind of perfect rhythm as they're beating down John the zombie at the bar. I feel like the Specials intro, that Ghost Town song is clutch. And then a cool thing that I found out, because I realized I owned this soundtrack back in the day, and there's 3 songs from a band called Ash, and I'd never heard of them before, and they're a British rock band. And I was like, that's interesting. They put 3 songs by the same band onto this. It's the 2 car sequences, like when Philip is a zombie and turns off the song. I think that's one of them. But anytime Ed is driving, and then one of the songs in the credits is by the same band. And it turns out they got all these songs donated to the film because Edgar Wright's girlfriend at the time was in this band. But what's cool is Chris Martin, who you mentioned earlier from Coldplay, is on one of those tracks. So it's like, we got a free Chris Martin song for this movie just because you were dating the guitars. That's pretty cool,
Yeah, cash in where you can, man. That's a good get. I love it.
Yeah,
But
the
yes,
music in
it
this is
is.
great.
It's laid the groundwork for him to really focus on his love of music. And he did that other one later that I can't, we talked about, but I can't remember the name of, that is like purely a movie documentary kind of vibe. So it's absolutely a through line in his work at this point.
How do you feel about the ending? Let's just get right there of how the final scene with Shaun and Ed technically plays out, and Liz in the basement. They go out. The first time I watched it, I didn't know how I felt. I was a little shocked by the military just showing up. I did not like it caught me off guard that they sort of show up and just save the day. But granted, it's because his friend told them they were there. But how do you feel about the ending overall?
Well, a couple quick things. One, I think that Ed doesn't like at the beginning of the pub scene sacrifice himself, but I think at the very end he kind of does because he kind of knows he's not going to get out of there and is like, go, right? So a little bit. So I'll give him a little bit of credit there. But later, yeah, where the military just shows up. I agree. I don't think that there's a lot of, I mean, there's foreshadowing earlier of the military like is aware of this and trying to respond, but you get no further updates, right? Even the news stories are all blacked out and everything. So it's kind of a out of left field.
Yeah.
But the timing is necessary, right, for them to just survive. So it makes sense. I like the callback to her there. That's good. I like that Liz and him get back together and they're having like a grown up relationship.
Yep.
I don't think I love the Ed thing. I don't
like zombie Ed.
I don't hate it, but I don't love it. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like, he's basically the same dude as a zombie. Checks out. Like he's, a layabout and playing video games and kind of fucking nonsensical. Cool. Check, check, check. So I just was like, I guess it kind of makes sense that he would still want him around. And it ties into the, all the zombies being repurposed for other things, like the service industry, which was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And like the way people reacted to it, the reality TV show of like, well, he's still my husband. And I immediately was like, this is what would happen though. Like we would find a way if the zombies were still around. Honestly, to turn it into entertainment or monetize it or whatever. Like it's such a commentary to your earlier point on our society and how we would react to these things. So that part I liked. I just don't think I love the Ed thing. I think like it undermines his sacrifice a little bit. And then I also think it is another moment of Shaun kind of like acceding to his best friend and not moving on and growing into this other relationship and all of that. And like keeping him in the shed is such a weird fucking energy to me. But I mean,
again, foreshadowed earlier by Pete, who says, you want to live like an animal, go live in the shed. And at the end, there he is. I think it's fitting. I think Shaun, we see growth in this little, 2-minute scene with him and Liz of he's made some changes. They seem happy. And I think it's okay that he hangs on to Ed, who never had any desire to change and was content just sitting around and playing video games all day. He's probably not going to care. I would be curious what he's feeding him, if at all.
Right? And he tries to bite him. That's the other thing. I'm like,
that's played for laughs. I kind of like that, honestly. It's just like Ed, he's just disappointed in him.
I don't like it because I do think it's played for laughs and it's like kind of a chuckle, but I'm kind of like, you wouldn't risk that. Like, what if one fucking time he actually bites you? You know what I mean? Like that just feels stupid to me, but
they
whatever.
Also, they fill that gap. That's another one of those animated shorts on the DVD. They tell you how Ed, because you hear the gunshots and I think we're to assume that Ed kills himself. So it's more of a surprise when he shows up in the shed. But in that they say he actually just used both shells on like 2 zombies. They fell in front of him.
And then the military comes.
Yeah, and he was hidden until he turned zombified, and then Shaun came back and got him, basically. So they do kind of explain that away. But yeah, I think the ending of this is satisfying. I like that. I don't know how else you end on much more of a positive note. And we end with, again, a great song, Queen's Best Friend. And I think that just drives
I do love the song. Yeah. I do love the song. And I think I don't hate that scene, but like the song kind of makes it if you're going to do it. Yeah. Well, what is your rating then?
I am gonna love this more than you do. I acknowledge that. It's weird. It's been 20 years of this, and I wasn't paying as much attention this time. I was just kind of taking notes, and if I'm being honest, I was watching at like 1.25 speed because I'm just like, I know this movie like the back of my hand. I don't need to rewatch it, and I feel like I just rewatched it a year or two ago.
I don't even know if I can watch things at 1.25 speed. Anyway, continue.
But if I go back and put myself in like 2004, the first time I watched this, it's hard to knock it down pegs because of how many times I've rewatched it. So I just think this movie's incredible. I think it's funny. I think it's tight. The script is great. Couple problematic things that we didn't really touch on, but they have since been addressed for what it's worth by both Nick Frost, Edgar Wright, and Simon Pegg, and they've sort of talked about some of the problematic stuff in this, and they've apologized for it. Of just anyway. All that to say, I'm gonna go pretty high. I think I'm gonna go 9. I really fucking love this movie. I don't know what I would change. I don't know why I'm not going perfect for what it is. But yeah, I'm gonna go pretty high. I'm gonna go 9. I guess maybe the military thing still feels a little off to me of just how abruptly it happens. But yeah.
Wow.
Sorry.
What a high rating.
Sorry,
I feel now I feel like I should like be less of an asshole in my rating. But
no, dude, be honest. Where are you at?
I think it's like a 6.5. Like if we hadn't watched it for this, I probably would have not watched it again. You know what I mean? It's not something I'm ever gonna like turn on for funsies even. I don't hate it, but again, it's more about the genre for me than it is anything about this movie in particular, because like I mean I said mostly positive things. I think there's a lot of things to like here about the pacing and the script and like the one-liners or whatever, but I mean there's just a lot of it that I'm just not interested in. You know,
if zombie movies are not for you, I think a 6.5 is actually a pretty high score for a zombie movie. And I know that's
the thing. I'm just not interested in the zombie shit. But I think they did a good job and made it funny for something that I'm normally not that interested in. I just wouldn't really rewatch it that much.
If I'm being honest, and this is not being spiteful, when we get to Dracula spoiler next week, it's the same for me. We know that I'm not a huge vampire guy. You're not a huge zombie girl, and it will impact my rating. We're doing this on a personal level, so I get it.
Totally. Well, speaking of, thanks for joining, fam. This next week is Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is a very specific adaptation of
the only
that.
one with Keanu Reeves doing an English accent. Get ready.
Whew, brace yourself. I will just asterisk this that I don't know if you want to watch it first, fam. You may just want to listen to the episode and then decide whether or not you want to watch it. So, pick your poison. But in the meantime,
follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things on Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. You can get the video of this podcast on YouTube or on Spotify video. Make sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff to give us some engagement. And you can always email us, we drink and we watch things pod@gmail.com with any questions, feedback, suggestions for movies, all that good stuff.
Or message us on the gram too, because we're on there a lot, to be honest.
That's probably where we have our biggest footprint, honestly.
Yeah. All right, homies. For now, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Boy. Cheers.